Greetings everyone, and welcome to part 1 of my extensive Wargame Red Dragon tutorial. There will be at least 9 tutorial videos, more may come later. If you only want to watch the videos about specific topics, you can click the respective link or links in the description to get to them. Before we get into it, very shortly something about me, so you know that I'm not just a scrub trying to sell my lies as facts. Currently I'm ranked 3 and 5 on the ranked leaderboard and had quite some success in recent tournaments. I felt there are too many so-called tutorials with either false or outdated information, and while the game is already 2 years old, it will still get supported for quite a while, so I decided to do another, hopefully better, tutorial. But enough of me stroking my dick, let's get right into it. Controls and basics. A big difference to many other strategy games is the different control of units, especially ground units. It is also the most important thing to learn, which is why I decided to start the series with this part. In most other games, you tell your units to move by simply right-clicking to the destination where you want them to move to. In Wargame, however, every ground vehicle has two types of speeds. First, the road speed, which is standardized into 110 and 150 km per hour, and then the normal speed, which is based on the speed the vehicle is or was able to reach in reality. Note that in nearly every case the difference between road and normal speed is quite big. When you click on the fast move button and then to a destination, your unit will try to get there the fastest way and will utilize roads if there are any on the way. If you move your unit via normal right click, it will get there using the shortest, most direct route. Also, if you tell a unit that is currently on a street to move somewhere via right click, it will never utilize the road speed even if it technically drives on the road the whole time. Another important button is reverse. If you click that button and then on a point on the map, your vehicle will move backwards to that point. This is important if you want to retreat, since every armored vehicle has the highest amount of armor on the front. This movement does not utilize road speed. The next, just as important button is attack move. It works just like the other two, that you click it and then click where you want your unit to move. The small but important difference is that whenever an enemy unit is in sight and you are able to shoot at it, your unit will stop moving and do exactly that. Shoot at it. If the target is dead, out of range or out of sight, your unit will continue moving to the initial destination. Attack move does not utilize road speed either. I will get deeper into the role of movement in respect to armor in part 5 of the series. The rest of the buttons should be straightforward. When it comes to the button stop, keep in mind that it only stops the unit from moving, but not from firing at enemy units. You can also turn off your weapons one by one by just clicking on them down at the bottom. The unload button is only available to transports that have infantry in them. To load an infantry back into the transports, just select your infantry and right click on the transport. There is no size restriction, but keep in mind that even if you have 2 squads of infantry with only 1 man left, only one of those can enter an empty transport. That goes for both transport helicopters and transport vehicles. The change altitude button allows helicopters to hover right above the ground, making them able to take cover behind trees and buildings. You can't use this function on top of trees or buildings though. The same goes for landing. On the left you can also see the airplane tab and the jet button. I will get more into the plane tab in the later part of the series. And lastly, on the bottom you can see the button that opens the unit information panel. I strongly suggest you set the keybind for that to a key that you can reach very quickly, as this feature is of very high importance for both new players and veterans. Here you can see my keybinds in case you are interested. Of course, set them like you want it. A thing regarding the user interface, I strongly recommend turning off label merging in the settings. That way unit labels overlap each other and you get a much better overview when zooming out. Label merging only makes you zoom in and lose the overview once you have a decent amount of units scattered on the battlefield. Moving on to the basics. Before I get into the game modes, you can see that the map is divided into zones. You can capture the zones with command units, which you can identify via the little star symbol in their name. They are very expensive and generally only lightly armed and armored, if at all. An exception are command tanks, for example. The command units can either be infantry, jeeps, APCs, IFVs, helicopters or tanks. To capture a zone, all you have to do is have a command unit of your choice standing in there. If you capture it, it will be colored in the color of your team, and you will have a variety of boni depending on the game mode you are playing and the zone that you captured. Every starting zone or sector has an arrow pointing to it, which you can see if you zoom out far enough. The white arrow means that you can spawn ground and helicopter units there if you control the zone. The other, thinner arrow means that you can spawn planes there. On some maps there are more zones from which you can spawn units, you can capture them over the course of the match. If both teams have one or more command units in a zone, it gets neutralized and no team gains anything from it. It doesn't matter how many command units are in there, one is already enough to so-called counter cap. That means that under normal circumstances, there is no reason to have more than one command unit in any zone. On to the game modes. In Wargame there are 3 different game modes: Conquest, Destruction and Economy. In Conquest, each zone has a set value. If the combined value of all the zones you control is higher than those of your enemy, you get the difference in Conquest points every 4 seconds, which is the same rate at which you gain income. The team that reaches the point limit first or has more points after the time ends, if there is a time limit, wins. The income is fixed, and to put it short, this game mode is all about map control. Destruction is all about killing enemy units. If you kill an enemy unit, your team will get points equal to the unit's cost. Whoever reaches the point limit first, or has more points when the time is over, wins. There is also another way of playing Destruction: Total Destruction. Those are often played with no time limit and end once you killed all command units of your opponent. Income is determined by how many zones you control. Zones often have different value, which means that some generate more income than others. The third game mode, Economy, is barely played. You will have a hard time finding games, even if you host your own lobby. I'm not going to bother explaining the game mode too much, so to put it short, it is all about spending your points at the right time. It is a very flawed game mode, which is one of the reasons why nobody plays it. And then there's also Ranked. Ranked is basically Conquest, and you basically choose to play either 1 vs 1 or 2 vs 2. Choose a deck, press launch, and when the game finds an opponent for you, who also searches Ranked obviously, it will choose a map by random. For 1 vs 1s, obviously only 1 vs 1 maps, and the same goes for 2 vs 2. Also no maps with naval spawns. After the game you will lose or gain rank points depending on whether you win or lose, and the difference in points between you and your opponent. Your starting rating is 1500 points. Something all games have in common is a differentiation between Blue 4 and Red 4, or NATO and Warsaw Pact if you want to call it that way. All games will be played in either Blue 4 vs Blue 4, Red 4 vs Red 4, or Blue 4 vs Red 4, which is played in most cases. That means you will never be able to play USA while your teammate plays Poland, for example. When the game starts, you will first be in the deployment phase. Here, the game stands still and you can buy and place the units. Once the game starts, the units will stand exactly where you put them, so you don't have to spawn them first. Note that each player has to start with at least 1 command unit. To place a unit, just simply click on the number on the top left, which shows the amount of points you have, then click on the tab from which you want to buy the unit, and then on the picture of it. Now just place it anywhere within your starting zone. To delete it, just right click the unit or its label. Once the game has started, you can deploy new units anywhere. Just keep in mind that they have to spawn at the nearest spawn first. Then they will travel to your designated point on their own. Note that ground units will spawn 10 seconds after you place them, so you can still cancel them if you suddenly decide not to buy them. This is it for part 1. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I see you next time.